Welcome to the Mind Spark, bringing you the latest news from around the world. Washington is a city on edge tonight. The air is thick with anticipation and anxiety, as if the city itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next move in a high-stakes political drama. Flashing lights paint the White House in strokes of red and blue, casting long shadows across the lawn. The iconic building stands as a silent witness to the turmoil brewing within its walls. Inside, the atmosphere is electric. Former President Donald Trump is reportedly furious, his anger echoing through the corridors. Staffers exchange nervous glances, bracing for the fallout. His ambitious plan to reshape America's trade policy has been stopped dead in its tracks, halted by forces beyond his control. The headlines are relentless, each one a reminder of a vision suddenly derailed. The Supreme Court, an institution he worked tirelessly to shape during his tenure, has delivered a stunning and unexpected blow, upending months of political maneuvering. This isn't just a policy defeat, it's a direct challenge to his authority, a public rebuke that cuts to the core of his leadership and legacy. The shockwaves are spreading far beyond the Beltway, reaching every corner of the nation, and reverberating across the globe. Markets tremble and world capitals take notice. The news broke like a thunderclap, sending reporters scrambling for answers and lawmakers into a state of uncertainty. The halls of power are abuzz with speculation and rumor. Trump's allies are crying foul, calling it judicial overreach and an attack on executive power. His opponents, meanwhile, hail it as a victory for the rule of law and a check on presidential authority. The division in American politics has just been thrown into overdrive, deepening the rift between parties and igniting passions on both sides of the aisle. Inside the West Wing, disbelief and rage mix as aides walk on eggshells, uncertain of what tomorrow will bring. Every conversation is hushed, every decision fraught with tension. Trump's silence on social media is seen as the calm before a storm. The world waits for his response, knowing that when it comes it could reshape the narrative once again. His economic agenda was built on these tariffs. Now that foundation has crumbled, leaving uncertainty for American workers, businesses, and global partners alike. The Supreme Court's decision questions the very power of a president to act alone on the world stage, raising fundamental issues about checks and balances in American democracy. The legal battle may be over, but the political war has just begun. Strategists on both sides are already plotting their next moves, aware that the stakes have never been higher. Lawmakers are already huddling, planning their next moves in secret meetings and late-night strategy sessions, determined to seize the moment or defend their ground. Global leaders are on the phone, trying to understand what this means for them, as allies and rivals alike reassess their strategies in light of America's shifting political landscape. Tonight, the future of American economic policy hangs in the balance. The world is watching, and the next chapter in this unfolding drama is about to be written. To understand the chaos, we must first understand the plan. Trump's tariff proposal was the cornerstone of his America First vision, sweeping tariffs on imported goods, from steel to electronics. The goal? Protect American industries from what he called unfair foreign competition and bring back jobs. Supporters, especially in the Rust Belt, saw tariffs as a lifeline for struggling factories and a patriotic duty to rebuild America's industrial might. Domestic producers cheered, hoping tariffs would shield them from cheaper foreign metals. But opposition was fierce. Retailers warned tariffs would raise prices for American families. Farmers feared retaliation would devastate their export markets. The debate wasn't just about economics, it was about America's role in the world. The Supreme Court's decision didn't end the debate. It simply moved the battlefield from the White House to Congress. The nation remains deeply divided on the best path forward. The Supreme Court's decision was a landmark moment for the separation of powers. In a 6-3 ruling, the justices declared the president cannot impose sweeping tariffs without Congress. The majority opinion defended the Constitution's design. Congress, not the president, regulates commerce and duties. The court drew a line. Presidential power has limits. This is a significant check on the so-called imperial presidency. The ruling reasserts that America is a nation of laws, not of men. Future presidents must now work with Congress on major trade initiatives. Some see this as a roadblock, others, a vital safeguard for democracy. The playbook for wielding economic power in Washington has fundamentally changed. The Supreme Court's decision sent immediate shockwaves through the economy, rippling from the heart of Wall Street to the smallest businesses on Main Street. The news was met with instant reactions across financial markets and boardrooms alike. On Wall Street, the stock market surged. Investors welcomed the end of tariff uncertainty, and optimism spread quickly. The decision was seen as a green light for renewed investment and risk-taking. Companies relying on global supply chains saw their stock prices jump as the threat of costly disruptions faded. For many multinational firms, this ruling meant stability and a chance to plan for growth. For consumers, the threat of higher prices on everyday goods has been averted. Shoppers could breathe a sigh of relief, knowing their grocery bills and household budgets would not suddenly spike. The National Retail Federation praised the decision for protecting families from a massive new tax, emphasizing how crucial affordable goods are for American households. Importers and businesses depending on foreign parts celebrated, relieved that their supply chains would remain intact and their costs would stay manageable. But for domestic industries like steel and aluminum, the ruling is a setback. They lose the protection they hoped for and face renewed competition from cheaper imports. For workers, the impact is split. Jobs in import-reliant sectors are safer, but factory workers in traditional industries feel abandoned, worried about layoffs and plant closures. This ruling highlights the complex, often conflicting interests within the American economy. Every decision creates winners and losers, and the balance is never simple. A policy that helps one group can hurt another, and the ripple effects are felt in every corner of the country. The economic landscape has shifted, but the debate over who benefits and who loses continues, fueling passionate arguments among policymakers and business leaders. The story of American trade is far from over. Each chapter brings new challenges and opportunities, shaping the nation's future. The nation must now navigate these new realities, as leaders and citizens alike adapt to a changing world and uncertain times. To truly grasp the impact of these decisions, we need to listen to those who are directly affected, the people whose lives are changed overnight by policies and rulings far from their control. Maria Sanchez, a small business owner in California, feared that new tariffs would destroy everything she had worked for. For months, she watched her costs rise and her customers dwindle, wondering if she'd have to close her doors for good. Today's Supreme Court ruling means her dream survives, at least for now. She can keep her business open, her employees working, and her hopes alive. In Pennsylvania, steelworker David Miller saw those same tariffs as a rare chance for his struggling community to recover. For him and his co-workers, it was a glimmer of hope in a town hit hard by job losses. Now, with the court's decision, he feels betrayed and left behind, uncertain about his future and the future of his family. The Johnson family in Iowa, soybean farmers for generations, dreaded a trade war that could have cost them their land and their legacy. Every season they worried about prices, markets, and whether they could make it through another year. The court's decision gives them a chance to survive, to keep farming, and to pass their way of life on to their children. These stories reveal the deep human consequences behind the headlines, real people facing real stakes every single day. It's not just about economic theory or legal arguments, it's about people's hopes, fears, and the dreams they fight to protect. For every person who breathes a sigh of relief, another feels abandoned, left to wonder what comes next. The Supreme Court's ruling has chosen a path, but the nation's divisions remain as deep as ever, echoing in communities across the country. Economic policy is never just numbers on a page, it's lives, dreams, and livelihoods hanging in the balance, shaping the future for millions. The stakes are deeply personal, and the impact is profound, touching every corner of American life. The debate over America's economic future is written in the stories of its people, in their struggles and their resilience. The nation's next steps will shape countless lives, determining who gets to dream and who must start over. The human cost of policy decisions is impossible to ignore, and it's a reminder that behind every headline there are real people with everything at stake. The Supreme Court's decision reverberated across the globe. America's allies in Europe and Asia breathed a sigh of relief. Fears of a trade war and fractured alliances eased. Leaders in Berlin, Tokyo, and Ottawa hailed the ruling as a win for international cooperation and stability. Allies prefer a United States that negotiates, not one that acts alone. In Beijing, the reaction was measured. China sees both opportunity and challenge. The immediate threat of tariffs is gone, but America's checks and balances are robust. Developing nations welcomed the stability, hoping to avoid collateral damage from a US-led trade war. The world sees America's system as messy but resilient, with built-in safeguards against radical shifts. For now, the US remains bound by its laws and institutions. The global trading system breathes easier, but uncertainty lingers. America's next moves will be watched closely by friend and rival alike. The Supreme Court's ruling shifts power back to Congress. For years, presidents drove trade policy. Now lawmakers are in the driver's seat. The House Ways and Means and Senate Finance Committees become key players. Trade policy will now be forged through debate and compromise, not executive decree. This shift offers a chance for more democratic representative policy, but also risks gridlock. Special interests will lobby hard, making consensus difficult. Congressional leaders must bridge deep divides to craft a coherent strategy. The world is watching. Can Congress rise to the occasion? America's economic leadership depends on their ability to act. The future of U.S. trade is now in the hands of 535 lawmakers. This saga is a lesson in American democracy and checks and balances. The executive branch proposed bold change. The Supreme Court checked its power, citing Congress's authority. The system worked as designed. No branch is above the law. The ruling isn't about tariffs, but about who decides. In a democracy, process matters as much as outcome. The nation stands at a crossroads. Can Congress forge a new consensus, or will division lead to paralysis? The world isn't waiting. America's choices now will define its global role. The coming months will test leaders and institutions alike. The Supreme Court has handed the question back to the people and their representatives. How America responds will shape the 21st century. As the dust settles in Washington, capitals around the world are recalibrating. The Supreme Court's decision sent ripples through international markets. Trade partners and rivals alike are reassessing their strategies. For some, the ruling is a relief, a signal that American policy will once again be subject to broader debate and legislative negotiation. For others, it marks a period of uncertainty, with new deals potentially stalled in Congress and existing alliances put to the test. Stock footage of shipping containers, international summits, and bustling trading floors underscores the stakes. Analysts point to a new era of cautious engagement where every move by U.S. lawmakers is scrutinized for global impact. Some nations may seek alternative partners, hedging against American unpredictability. Others may see opportunity in a more collaborative, rules-based approach emerging from renewed congressional involvement. What's clear is this: America's role in global trade is entering a period of transformation. The world is watching not just for policy outcomes, but for signs of stability and leadership. As Congress debates, and as businesses adapt, the international community is preparing for a future where U.S. power is both respected and contested, where cooperation and competition will define the new global order. As the global stage shifts, the aftershocks are felt most intensely within the halls of American power. The Supreme Court's landmark decision has redrawn political battle lines, igniting passionate responses from both sides of the aisle. Cut to split-screen footage press conferences on Capitol Hill, party leaders addressing reporters, scrolling social media reactions. On one side, party leaders hail the ruling as a victory for checks and balances, a restoration of congressional authority that they argue was long overdue. Their supporters flood the airwaves, calling for bipartisan cooperation and renewed focus on legislative solutions. Yet for others, the decision is seen as a setback. Key figures warn of gridlock and lost momentum, fearing that critical reforms may now be bogged down in endless political wrangling. Clips of fiery floor speeches and contentious committee hearings illustrate the deepening divide. Meanwhile, the American public watches closely. Polls flash on screen approval ratings, shifting party loyalties, and a surge in civic engagement. Political strategists scramble to recalibrate ahead of the next election cycle, as new alliances form and old rivalries reignite. In this charged atmosphere, every statement, every vote, and every policy proposal takes on new weight. The nation is not just debating policy, it's wrestling with the very nature of power and democracy in a rapidly changing world. As the dust settles, one thing is certain: the political landscape will never be quite the same again. As the echoes of political upheaval fade, America stands at a crossroads, its institutions tested, its leaders challenged, and its people more engaged than ever. The journey through crisis and conflict has not been easy. Yet, it is in moments like these that the true character of a democracy is revealed. Montage sweeping aerial shots of Washington, D.C., families gathered around kitchen tables, young people at rallies, diverse communities participating in town halls. Through fierce debates and difficult decisions, the nation has reaffirmed its core values: resilience, accountability, and the belief that progress comes not from the absence of struggle, but from the willingness to confront it together. The world has watched as America wrestles with its own ideals, sometimes faltering, always striving. Cut to footage of international leaders, then back to everyday Americans casting ballots, volunteering, and engaging in civic life. As the globe recalibrates and new alliances are forged, the United States faces its future with both humility and hope. The challenges ahead are real, but so too is the capacity for renewal. The story of American democracy is not written in moments of triumph or defeat, but in the enduring commitment of its people to shape a better tomorrow. End with a slow fade to the American flag fluttering at sunrise. In the end, the path forward remains uncertain, but the promise of democracy endures, and with it, the hope that, together, we can rise to meet whatever comes next.